Good evening, dear friends. My name is Dov Drizin, Rabbi Dov Drizin of Valley Chabad in Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey. And I am excited to be joined by my dear colleagues, Rabbi Yosef Ornstein of Valley Chabad, New Jersey, Rabbi Moshe Reitzis of Valley Chabad. I'm also joined by my dear colleagues and friends, Rabbi Chanoch Kaplan and his wife Mimi Kaplan of Chabad of Northwest Bergen County in Franklin Lakes, and Rabbi and Rebbitzin. Everyone gets a different title, all by design. Lewis of Chabad in Old Tappan. And it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces and so many new, but certainly familiar faces. And we're going to have a good time tonight. I'm looking forward to a great time. And it is a special time. It is a special Shabbos this Shabbos, and we're leading to a special, a wonderful special date. Tonight, tomorrow night, is Yud Shvat, the 10th day of the month of Shvat. And we are marking and celebrating 70 years of the Rebbe's unique contribution and unique leadership that all of us on this screen, and Jews and non-Jews around the world, have been touched by. And for that, we've gotten together three communities, a lot of souls, a lot of good heart. And I'd like to welcome Rabbi Chanoch Kaplan, who is going to introduce our speaker tonight. And so without further ado, Rabbi Kaplan, I'm going to spotlight your video and say l'chaim. Hey, where's my l'chaim?
That's the only thing missing, but l'chaim.
L'chaim.
Well, thank you, Rabbi Drizin. And I'd like to welcome all of our communities, my community, Rabbi Drizin's community, and Rabbi Lewis's community. It's wonderful to be together. We can't be together in person. We can be together like this. This is much easier. So 70 years ago, the Rebbe gave us what I would call the Wi-Fi password. And this allows millions of hearts across the world to transcend their own individual heartbeat and to share in a single heartbeat with all of humankind. So that was 70 years ago. And 50 years ago, Rabbi Friedman began what became a long and storied career as one of the chief exponents of the Rebbe's vision. Personally, Rabbi Friedman, in my humble opinion, is a creative genius. He has the capacity to see every idea around him through a very unique and original lens. And he's lectured, taught, guided literally millions around the world. And just to tell you how far his reach is, about 10 years ago, it was before the menorah lighting in Wyckoff, and I was approached by a gentleman, came out of the blue, and I started talking with him, and I wasn't positive he was there for the menorah lighting, and I asked him, "Are you Jewish?" And he said, "No." I said, "What brings you here tonight?" He says, "I just wanted to be part of it." And I asked why, and we began talking, and he explained in his words that he was a devotee of Rabbi Friedman's. Now, whether or not his story of being an ex-CIA agent was real or not, I don't know. But here was a guy out of the blue, non-Jewish, living in Wyckoff, New Jersey, of all places, and it turns out that he is what you might call a chassid of Rabbi Friedman. So I have many, many great memories of Rabbi Friedman, but I'll let him make his own impression on you. So I'd like to turn the Zoom over and invite Rabbi Friedman to please inspire us this evening. Thank you.
Rabbi Friedman, you're going to have to unmute yourself, please.
That's easy enough. Getting other people to unmute me is a problem. So where do we begin? It's almost humanly impossible to describe what the Rebbe did to the world. I think it's necessary to point out that what the Rebbe did was so unusual, unprecedented, that you can't even call it traditional. This was not traditional Judaism. This was something way beyond. And the first thing is what the Rebbe thought of human beings. The Rebbe's view of what a human being is new. Let me use a quick example. All the experts in Israel, probably everywhere in the world, predicted with absolute certainty that this lockdown, being stuck in the house together, quarantined, is going to create a huge tragedy. The divorce rate is going to go through the roof. Statistics show in Israel that in the last 11 months, the divorce rate has gone down. Not up, down. So the question is, all these experts, where did they make their mistake? Where did they go wrong? Because it did seem like a pretty safe prediction. They went wrong in their understanding of what a human being is. And in general, we have a rather negative, critical opinion about the human condition. Maybe cynical. Human beings are just not nice. Human beings are selfish. Human beings are greedy. Human beings are petty. And that's what you should expect. So when you take such people and lock them in a house together, what do you think is going to happen? The outcome that shows that the divorce rate went down disproves that whole theory. There is something more and something better about human beings than we're giving them credit. And the Rebbe saw that. And so when the Rebbe said, we can change the world, who's we? Who did he think can change the world? And that was his goal. That was his objective. Every day since he became Rebbe, maybe before. So who did he think would change the world? Extraordinary people, exceptional people, like the proud, the few, the Marine. You can't change the world with a few people. The Rebbe's opinion of humans in general is so much more positive, so much greater, it's almost superhuman. What the potential that the Rebbe saw in the average human being, we would consider superhuman, unrealistic. The late Rabbi Steinsaltz, of blessed memory, tells a story where he came to the Rebbe and he told the Rebbe that he is overextended, he's exhausted himself with all the projects that he was involved in. He also wasn't the healthiest man. He had to be careful with his health. And so he doesn't know what he can drop of all of his obligations and responsibilities. They spoke for a while, and then Rabbi Steinsaltz realized the Rebbe is giving him another project. And he was a little stunned. And the Rebbe said, "It's fine. You'll do it." And he did it. Rabbi Steinsaltz was convinced that the Rebbe was recreating the human being, redefining what a human being is. So the first thing is Hasidic understanding, the traditional Hasidic understanding of what is a human being. We know that the world has four kingdoms: the mineral, the vegetable, the animal, and the human. In the secular world, the human is simply the next step up from animal. The naked ape, the hairless ape. So yes, we're a little smarter and we have less hair, but basically we're just as animal as the ape. Hasidus says that there is a qualitative difference between the other three, the mineral, the vegetable, and the animal, versus the human being. And this we all need to know. This is like the ABCs of humanity. The vegetable, the mineral, and the animal are all content to be what they are. An animal just wants to be an animal. Just don't restrict me. Don't put me in a cage. Let me be free to roam and do my thing, and I'm happy. The vegetable, give me a little water and give me a little light, sunlight, and I'm fine. Happy to be a vegetable. The mineral, of course, perfectly happy to be a mineral. Just don't cut me, don't crush me, don't destroy me, and I'm happy. The human being is different, radically different. The human being by nature, not by conviction, not because of idealism, and not because of religious belief. By definition, a human being, you ready for this? A human being is never content to be human. The human being is not content being human. The human being wants to be something more than he was created to be. So if a human being is a human being, none of that is a credit to the person, because he was created that way. I was created human, I remained human, and I died human. And what did you accomplish? It's frustrating to think that I'm born human and I die human. Disturbs the human psyche, because we are geared by our nature to contribute, to add something to what we're given. So if I just remain what I was created as, it doesn't work for me. The human being is constantly searching to become something more than human. And that's why we're driven to join clubs, armies, sports teams. We want to be part of something bigger. Of course, just a big group of people doesn't really make you more than human. You just feel like you're involved in something big. But the true need and the true desire of a human being is to become something more. To climb up the ladder that stands on earth and reaches into heaven, we've got to climb the ladder, not remain standing on earth. And if all I ever am is a human being, actually, the human being who says, I'm perfectly content being what I am. Just don't disturb me. Don't get in my way. I will not get in your way. Live and let live, and I'm fine. No, you're not fine. You're acting like an animal. Acting like an animal means you're content with being what you already are. The human psyche does not find satisfaction in that. So when the Rebbe looked at a human being, he didn't look at what he is. He looked at what he can become. And what can he become? Something a little more than human, not just a nicer guy, not just more human, something greater. I think that's what it means when we're told that we are partners with God in creation. It sounds nice, you know? You're a partner with God. God created the world unfinished, and he wants you to finish it. Very nice. But what is it really saying? If I am a partner with God in creation, am I part of the creation? Or am I part of the creator? It's pretty awesome. You're a human being. You were created. You do live on earth. You are part of the natural order, and yet you're not. You are not nature. You are responsible for nature. You're a partner with God. Anything less than that limits the human being from what the human being needs to be. That's pretty radical thinking. What it's basically saying is the choice that a human being has to make is not between being a good person and a not good person. Because either way, you're human. You haven't really stepped up the ladder. And yet the secular world is completely focused on this very limited project. You're a human being, try to be the best human being you can be. No, that's frustrating. It is not satisfying. It is not fulfilling, because that's not how we are designed. To just be more human is going nowhere. Now, obviously, you have to be the best human being you can be. But that's just the obligation. Like, in medicine, the first rule in medicine is first, do no harm. A doctor must take a vow and pledge. The first thing is you will be careful to do no harm. If you can't heal, then you can't, but don't do any harm. So being a good human being, following the 10 Commandments, that's just not doing any harm. That is not going to satisfy the human spirit. I lived for 85 years and I didn't hurt anybody, and I didn't bother anybody, and I didn't do any damage. Yeah, but what did you do? What did you accomplish? It's got to be something more than that. So it turns out that our choices in life are not between good and bad. That's degrading. That's like saying a human being is always on the threshold. He's either going to be good or he's going to be bad. Very negative thinking. Not very respectful of the human being. It's like you're always on the verge of sinning, so be careful. Watch your step. You're right there on the threshold. One wrong move and you're bad. That's insulting. Although it is true. It is true. It is so easy to step over the line and do something wrong. But to say that that's our life, that's all there is, no. So here's where Hasidus comes along and says, you're not fighting a good inclination versus an evil inclination. What you're doing is making a choice between two souls. One soul is human, can be good, can be bad, but human. The other soul is godly. You know, all the years in yeshiva, when we're studying Tanya or any text of Hasidus, the godly soul, of course, the second soul, it's the godly soul, the peace of God from above. What in the world does that mean? First of all, what's a soul? And second of all, what's a godly soul? And what's a human soul? We need to know. We need to understand, not believe. So what is a soul? A soul is the ambition that human beings live with. If you want to get to a person's soul, don't look at what's happening, what they've done, what they're doing. Look at what their ambition is. Where do they want to go? That's your soul. A soul means the drive to achieve. You're not content to just be. Why? Animals are content, vegetables are content, minerals are content. Why is the human being not content? Because he has a soul. And the soul is not like a battery that keeps you functional. No, the soul wants something more than life. A battery is, long life batteries, but it doesn't go beyond life. Whereas the human soul wants something more. The godly soul wants only godliness. That's more. So here's your option. You can either set your goal towards human improvement, get richer, get more famous, get more popular, own more territory, become more controlling of others. That's your human soul. And it's never content. No one is ever content with how rich he is. No one is ever content with how much power you have. The most powerful people are desperate for more power. Like Stalin. They say he was paranoid. But what was he paranoid about? His grip on the country, on the world. So no amount of power ever satisfies, because a soul cannot be satisfied. That's what a soul is. The godly soul is ambitious in a godly way. What does that mean in simple language? My ambition is for God to succeed. The human soul is, I must succeed. And if I'm a really nice guy, I want my partner to succeed too. And if I'm a very nice guy, I want everybody to succeed. I want to see everyone do well. The godly soul says, my success is not anything to write home about. God created the world. God has an objective of what kind of a world he wants. And I am driven to see God's success. That's godly soul, right? So soul means ambition. Godly soul means my ambition is godly. It's my ambition that God succeed, not me. When you think about it, that's the whole Torah. That's the whole message of the Torah. So here's the choice in life, not between good and bad. Bad should not be part of the equation. Of course, you're not going to live your life bad. That should not really even be an option. Unless you're primitive. So what is the option? Here's the revolutionary idea. If you function and live by your human soul, you will always be needy. I need to get richer. I need to get stronger. I need to get smarter. I need to get more popular. I need more love. I need more security. It just goes on and on and on. And if you think you know all of your needs, go for therapy. They'll show you needs you never even thought of. Unconscious, subconscious, repressed. It's a mess. And we're not getting anywhere with it. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. Because the needs keep increasing. And it's getting really burdensome. People are starting to sense, if not actually know, our neediness is not true. That's why it's so debilitating. It's so toxic because it's not true. They're all artificially imposed needs. We don't have needs. We're the partner, not the creator. So look at how the Rebbe turned the world upside down. For 5,000 years, give or take, we have been laboring under the absolute conviction that number one, human beings are very needy, very vulnerable, fragile, dependent, helpless. The first thing they tell you when you go to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the first thing they tell you is you must admit that you are helpless. What a nice thought. So we're living by the assumption human beings are very, very needy. So you have to find favor. People have to like you. You have to be validated. Somebody has to love you. Somebody has to compliment you. Somebody has to protect you. And then God. You're so dependent on God. So you better be nice to him. Get on his good side. Maybe he'll give you some goodies. And to be on his good side, well, you have to apologize for all your sins and beg for forgiveness and plead with him not to strike you down with a lightning bolt. This is so morbid and depressing. I don't know how we survived. The other conviction, which everybody will agree to, God has no needs. We are full of needs. God has no need. I mean, he's perfect. Look at the monstrous picture you've just painted. God needs nothing, but he created all of us with a bunch of needs that we can't seem to satisfy. Well, thank you very much. How nice. God creates us with all these needs so that we're always pleading and begging him to be nice to us and to bless us and to give us and to protect us and to save us. It just goes on and on and on. But he doesn't need anything. Is that the cruelest picture you've ever heard? So not long ago, I was talking to a minister. I was introduced to a minister in Minnesota. Very nice people, very nice guy, and very honest. His first words to me were, "So do you believe in the Savior?" And it wasn't nasty. It wasn't mean-spirited. It was a straightforward question. So I said, actually, I'm not looking for a God who's going to save me and help me and do for me. I want to serve God. This man who has been a minister for, 40 years, he started to cry. He got all emotional. He said, I never even thought of that. But once you hear it, it's like, what, God exists to help you? To help you with the problems he gave you? What kind of picture is this? If he is here to help me, then I'm God. That's called idolatry. So here's your choice. You can be needy because of your human soul, or you can be needed because of your godly soul. Your godly soul feels no needs, but it feels needed. And so it wants to serve its purpose and be God's partner. The human soul is still trying to figure itself out, and it's kind of miserable. But let's at least understand this. What does it mean that I have needs? I'm sure you heard about this guy in India who was suing his parents for giving birth to him because they gave birth to him without his consent. When you first hear it, it sounds funny, right? But it's some kind of a joke. No, it's a true story, by the way. He took them to court and he demanded that they pay all his expenses, all his bills for the rest of his life. Why? You gave birth to me. Why should I pay bills? I never signed any agreement, not even an oral agreement. So you gave birth to me and then you tell me to go make a living? You tell me I have to go to school, I have to get into college, I have to graduate, I have to get a degree, I have to get a job, and I have to pay the mortgage? Not me. I didn't ask for any of this. So after a minute, it's not so funny. It's real and it's serious. What is the story here? I didn't ask to be born because I don't need to be born. But somehow I am born, and then all of a sudden I need to go to school, I need to pay bills, I need to, what? Come on. And the same is true with religion. I need to keep kosher, I need to keep Shabbos, I need to go to the mikveh. I thought about it, and I came to a very rational conclusion. I don't need this. I don't need it. I don't need it. So what are people going to say? What, you're not going to go to school? You're not going to get a job? You're not going to make money? You're not going to be able to pay your bills? You'll be out on the street? You're going to die. That don't threaten me anymore because I never asked to be born. So why is dying a threat? You can't threaten me anymore. I've just realized that I am not willing to live my life in order not to die. That doesn't make any sense. Just don't die, don't die, don't die. What? And that's life? So the religious grandfather who wakes up his grandson and says, no, you're going to be late to shul. You got to get to shul. You got to get to school. You got to get. And the kid rolls over and says, I really don't. I don't. So what does the grandfather say? You'll suffer for this. You'll go to hell and burn. And the kid is not impressed. In fact, if you're threatening me, it means you have nothing more to say. So no more threats. It's not working. It's not true that I have to. It's not true. I don't have to anything. I don't even have to be born. So when you tell your kid, clean up your room, the kid says, why do I didn't even ask to be born. Yeah, you're right. And he's not depressed. He's bright. So if your kid comes home and says, I didn't ask to be born, what should you say? You say, neither did I. I didn't ask to be born either. So it must be grandpa's fault. No, but grandpa says, I didn't ask to be born either. So we have to go back to Adam and Eve. They'll say the same thing. Now, so really, think about this. Do you need to be here? Did you need to be born and God did you a big favor and had you be born? No. You don't need to be born, which means you don't need to have a life. This is true. But scary, right? Because if you say, I don't need this, you sound suicidal. But that's only if you realize that you have no need, but you don't know that you're needed. Then it can be suicidal. But if you know that you're needed and recognize that you don't have any needs, that is so liberating. That's why serve God with joy. That's not an obligation, that's a promise. If you serve God and stop feeling so needy, then you will have joy. But if you're focused on your needs, you'll never have joy. You'll have fun, but that's not joy. So let me put it in a little story that illustrates the whole thing. This teenage boy goes off to yeshiva in France. True story. He walks into the office the day he arrives. And he says to the dean, to the mashpia, he says in Yiddish, he says, I have to call my mother. Which phone should I use? This was back before there were smartphones. To his surprise, the dean said to him, I have to call my mother. it was mocking him. The boy was a little taken aback. He said, yes, I have to call my mother, tell her I arrived. And the dean says again, I have to call my mother. I have to. The boy realized what the dean was saying. So he said, okay, my mother needs me to call her. Which phone can I use? And the dean got up and gave him the desk with the phone and said, here, call your mother. That changed his life. The rest of the year that he spent there was a waste of time. But that one conversation changed him. So how nasty is it to say, I need to call my mother, when in fact, my mother needs me to call her? It's plagiarism. What are you taking your mother's need and claiming it's yours? And what is the big difference? I need to call my mother. Okay, fine. So go find a phone. Because there's nothing noble about what you're doing. You need to call, so you need to find a phone. Go find a phone. But if you say, my mother needs me to call her, there's something godly about that. There's something moral, noble. So yes, here's my desk. Take the phone. Same is true with God. I need to be religious. No, you don't need to be. Isn't that your Torah? Not your mitzvah. God needs you to put on the tefillin. God needs you to go to the mikveh. God needs you to light a Shabbos candle. So when you say, I need, what are you, a minor God? That's playing God. Only God needs. You see how this is turning everything upside down? The creator of the entire universe needs nothing. Think again. Think again. You create the entire universe and you need nothing? Is this a joke? God created the world with a plan, with a purpose. Yes, of course. But he doesn't need the purpose. Even a 10-year-old would laugh at that. So this is what the Rebbe did. The Rebbe brought God down to earth and elevated up the human being to godliness. He brought God down to earth because he revealed God's urgency. God is waiting for Mashiach. Come on, doesn't that make sense? We're all devoted to Tikkun Olam, which is very nice. We want to repair the world. We want to fix the world, which is really nice. Whose world is it? Who needs the world repaired more than its creator? So what have we been thinking? Another interesting story. There's this Catholic priest in Crown Heights who became very friendly with the community because they eat at the same restaurant, the same kosher restaurant. I had a conversation with him. Charismatic guy, bringing new life, breathing new life into the church, rallying the teenagers, giving them programs, music lessons, taking them off the streets, a lot of good. So I asked him, what is your theology? You do very nice social programs. What's your theology? What do you tell these kids about God? He said, nobody asks me that. But I do have a theology. My theology is that we are here to fix the world. Not exactly traditional Catholicism. Catholics always believe that this world is a curse and you got to get to heaven as quickly as possible. So to think that they're devoted to fixing the world, that's a new, you know, Catholics aren't what they used to be. So I said, that's really beautiful. But add one little detail. Yes, we are here to fix the world, but who needs the world fixed more than the Creator? You should have seen this guy's reaction. He was a young, energetic guy. He actually looked like Obama. Sophisticated, debonair. He got so excited. He was pounding on the table. And he says, I knew it. I knew it. So what? What did you know? He says, through divinity school. They kept telling him that God cannot be bothered by anything. God is perfect. He's the Father and he is removed and you can't get to him. But his son, he cares. And he remembers, even as a young man, it didn't make sense to him. What do you mean the father doesn't care about his children? He leaves it to his favorite son to take care of the other children? What kind of father is this? He says, I knew it. Of course it's God who needs it. Once you hear it, you can't dismiss it because it's so true. So look at the picture now. You have the option of being needy or being needed. Now, what kind of contest is that? The human being wants to be needed, not pampered. I don't want you to take care of me. I want to take care of you. And that's why in Judaism, getting to heaven is no big deal. It's not a better place to be, like Christians say. It's not a better place. It's a retirement home. They take care of you very nicely. And every Jew would love to go to a retirement home, 5-star retirement home. Like for a month, 2 months. But then you got to get back to work and accomplish something and do something. What's with the retirement? So everybody knows the Rebbe was so against retiring. See, it's part of the theology. What do you mean retire? You live your life unproductive? No way. No way. We are here to serve. So we have a whole new picture of God. God is not this emotionless, uncaring, perfect being that watches us suffer and punishes us if we don't get our act together and will reward us after we die. Thank you very much. But he's sitting up there in a lounge chair with a cold drink. He's got no problems. He's got no needs. Not true. What kind of God are you talking about? An unfeeling God? That's the idol, the statue. In fact, we make fun of the idols. They have eyes that don't see. They have noses that don't breathe. They have legs that don't go. You say, what? You're saying the same thing about God? So here's the punchline. God is far more earthy than we know, and we are far more godly than we know. So we're bridging the distance between us. Finally, I want to share this little story. Very recent. After the COVID thing, there's this man that I know in Manhattan. His wife passed away very young. They never had children. So he lives alone in an expensive apartment in Manhattan. I mean, really alone, all by himself. The night of Pesach, the night of the first Seder, it occurred to him that it's Passover. He hadn't been following the calendar and he hadn't paid any attention. He's not an observant, committed, practicing Jew, but on Pesach, he would sometimes go to his grandparents for the Seder or whatever. And he felt really bad that he was not going to do anything on this holiday. So he goes into his pantry and he realizes he doesn't even have non-kosher matzah. So he finds a box of rice cakes. They're round. Their texture from a distance can be mistaken for a matzah. So he takes 3 rice cakes and the wine that he had in his house, which probably wasn't kosher, and he digs out the Maxwell House Haggadah. Anybody remember that? You don't have to admit it. Gives away your age. It was his grandmother's Maxwell House Haggadah. And it has instructions on how to make a Seder. So he sat down to make a Seder. He calls me after Yontif and he says, I want to share something with you. It was really surprising, pleasantly surprising. I found the rice cakes, and he tells me the whole thing. He says, I sat down and I probably botched the whole thing. I messed it all up. I didn't know what I'm doing. I never made a Seder, and I never paid attention at the Seder. He says, and I didn't expect it to be meaningful. Asking myself the 4 questions, come on, it's ridiculous. To my surprise, he says, it felt real. It felt like someone was listening. This is so beautiful. Felt like someone was listening. The Rebbe once said, tearfully, all choked up with emotion, that when you ask the 4 questions, you address it to your father. And in Yiddish, you actually say, Tate, will bei dir fragen, Father, I'm going to ask you 4 questions. The Rebbe says that even after your father has passed away, if you say at the Seder, Father, I want to ask you 4 questions, your father comes to your room and listens to your questions. The Rebbe was all emotional about it. So when he said it felt like somebody was listening, I wonder whether he was referring to his father, who came to hear his Seder, or God, who commanded that we make a Seder, or Eliyahu Hanavi, who comes to every Seder. So a lot of people were eavesdropping on his Seder. But here's the point I'm trying to make. If I were going to ask, very religious people, what do you think of this guy's Seder? I know what they would say. they would say, what a chutzpah. Playing at making a Seder? This is a mockery of the mitzvah. He had no right doing that. He should not have made a blessing on the rice cakes or on the wine, which probably wasn't even kosher. This is disgraceful. Sacrilege. He had no business making a Seder. Now, if I asked my secular friends, if you hear about this guy who forgot that it was Pesach, so in the last minute he made a Seder on rice cakes, I know what they would say. They would say, why? Why did he bother? He's not religious. He forgot it was Pesach, so let it go. Next year, if you remember and you're in a mood, you'll buy some matzah, you'll make a Seder, but it's not necessary. But now, ask a Rebbe, all the way back to the Baal Shem Tov. What do you think of this Seder? You know what the Rebbe would say? Of all the Seders made that night in Manhattan, this one brought God to tears. Because if you think about it, why did he make a Seder? Why? Public opinion? First of all, nobody he knows would be critical of his not making a Seder because they don't make a Seder. Nobody expects him to make a Seder. And if he does make a Seder, who's going to compliment him? Who's going to respect him for it? Not the religious people, not the secular people. He'll get nothing. Not that anybody would even know whether he did or he didn't. Why did he bother? You see what a Jew is? He felt bad that Pesach is going to come and go and he did nothing. This is not religious. This is Jewish. He did it because God expects it of him. It's not like he runs around talking about God all the time. God is not his favorite topic, but it's a reality. It's Pesach. It's a Jewish holiday. Jews do something special because God took us out of Egypt and asked, and he's just going to sit there and do nothing? It felt terrible. That's why it brought God to tears, because he had no reason to do it, no ulterior motive whatsoever. It was just the essential Jew in him that wanted to do something for God. So no, he didn't do a big mitzvah. There was no mitzvah. You cannot fulfill a mitzvah by eating rice cakes or by drinking non-kosher wine. But it moved God to tears. God wants to be on earth, united with his people. Like God came down to Mount Sinai to give us the 10 Commandments. He didn't take us up to heaven. He came down. So here's the major message of the Rebbe, who revitalized Judaism all over the world. Everywhere, wherever Judaism is blossoming, you know the Rebbe is behind it. The Rebbe's message was, God doesn't want you in heaven. God himself doesn't want to be in heaven. He wants to be on earth. So if you have an ambition to get to heaven, you're going in the wrong direction. You're going to pass each other because he's coming down and you're going up. And that's why it makes perfect sense to stop a Jew in the street and say, would you like to put on tefillin? Not do you believe in God, not are you religious, not are you holy. No, would you like to put on tefillin? But what, out of nowhere, just, yes. And after that, do I have to make any commitment? No. Just give me 5 minutes, put on the tefillin and disappear. Would you like to light a Shabbos candle? Simple question. How does that make any sense? It makes sense because lighting a Shabbos candle is not your need. So I don't have to ask you, you feel like you need a Shabbos candle? Are you religious and committed and desperate to get to heaven or something? Then I'm really not interested. But if you're Jewish and you'll give God 5 minutes and either light a Shabbos candle on Friday or put on tefillin during the weekday, yeah, I'll help you out with that. And is that meaningful? A lot meaningful than going to heaven. So how are we doing in this project? Have we been good partners with God? Is he happy with us? He is not only happy, he is shocked. Like one holy man said back in Poland, God knows everything. He knows what was, he knows what is, and he knows everything that will be. But I promise you, he is surprised by how good we turned out to be. That's true. Doesn't talk to us for 3,000 years. Not a word. Like somebody, when's the first time God spoke to a people? Mount Sinai. When's the last time God spoke to a people? Mount Sinai. It was the first and last time. Then he puts us through 2,000 years of absolute misery. Unspeakable. And Jews everywhere fast on Yom Kippur, give tzedakah, support Israel, support Jewish institutions, light Shabbos candles, eat a matzah on Pesach, light a Hanukkah candle, eat a latke. You know? If all the Jews did was eat a latke on Hanukkah, a hamantash on Purim, and blintzes on Shavuos, God would be thrilled. Because we have so many reasons to quit. Can you blame any Jew who quits? And so what? You don't want to talk to me, and you put me through 2,000 years of misery, and what? I quit. Would anybody blame them? Can anybody be critical of a person who survived the Holocaust and came out of a concentration camp and doesn't want to hear about God? Actually, I envy those people. You know, those survivors who are angry at God, furious. You mention God and they fly off the handle. Don't you dare talk about God. You know how real God is to them? You know how close they are to God? Enviable. So is God thrilled with his people? You've got to be kidding. Absolutely. We've gone way beyond the call of duty. Way beyond anything that can be expected of human beings. So God is absolutely thrilled. And to suggest anything other is anti-Semitism. Yes, Rabbi. Unmute. Unmute. Can we have some comments, some questions?
Yeah, l'chaim, l'chaim. I want to
Chaim
sit.
u'Yisroel.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ber pri hagafen.
Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim. To all of you, and thank you, Rabbi Friedman, for your most insightful, thought-provoking, and motivating talk. Friends, the Farbrengen isn't complete without a niggin, a stirring, a joyous melody, and a time to internalize the discussions. As this Farbrengen is to honor the 70th anniversary of the Rebbe's leadership, at this time we will enjoy a niggin sung by the Rebbe at one of his many thousands of Farbrengens at Chabad World Headquarters at 770 Eastern Parkway. After the niggin, we will have the opportunity to ask our questions. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to share them with your rabbi or in the chat box, and we will each do our best to present as many questions as time permits. If for some reason we are unable to address your questions, please feel free to reach out to us after the Farbrengen so we can continue this beautiful Farbrengen. And hopefully we will soon merit to the ultimate in-person Farbrengen together with the Rebbe and the souls of all the righteous with the coming of Mashiach. I just want to mention also that after the question and answer session, the Farbrengen will continue with a beautiful presentation by Gem Media, highlighting the Rebbe's mission, the Rebbe's mission statement during the Farbrengen, in which the Rebbe accepted leadership exactly 70 years ago this Saturday night, and how the Rebbe empowered each of us to see ourselves, our potential and strengths from God's perspective, something Rabbi Friedman beautifully expressed in his talk tonight. So here's the niggin with a little intro.
Are you waiting for me to sing?
A central role in Jewish life. It is the soundtrack of the Hasidic experience. Farbrengen is interspersed with nigunim, some reaching deep inside, stirring the strings of the soul. Others soaring high, uplifting and energizing. A Farbrengen was and is today a time for meditation and reflection. The first of 13 nigunim taught by the Rebbe, set to the words of King David, speaks of the soul's intrinsic thirst for connection with God, no matter its present state.
Okay. So, to our questions. I want to just remind everybody to please share your questions. If you have any questions in the chat box, you could share it directly with your rabbi or in the general chat box, and we'll try to share your questions. So, Rabbi Friedman, you spoke about serving God. And I think you also mentioned that we could serve God in our own ways, as in the matzah story, the rice cake story. What exactly does it mean to serve God for each of us?
Obviously, to serve means to provide what is needed. Like you buy God another tie, he doesn't need any more ties. So to serve means to bring what is needed, like a servant serves his master. Doesn't do stuff the master doesn't need. It's not called serving. So God has to tell us, what does he need from us? That's the Torah. The Torah is not telling us what we need. It's telling us what he needs. So there are 613 things that he needs from us. But of course, behind all of that, there has to be a devotion. I'm here to serve you. So sometimes, inevitably, I'm going to try to serve you to the best of my ability, but my ability is limited because I really don't know. So I don't know how to serve you, and I want to serve you anyway. So I try, and I mess up, and I bungle the whole thing. But God loves it. Of course, that doesn't really serve his need, because he doesn't need you to keep us, to have 3 matzah, not 3 rice cakes, right? So how do we serve God? By doing what he needs done. And what does he need done? Well, he told us very clearly, spelled it out very nicely in the Torah. So any mitzvah you do, you are serving him.
Which leads to another question. Does this serve a purpose for God?
This conversation we're having?
No, doing what God wants.
Yes.
What God needs.
Yes. Because when God needs something, it's pretty serious. It's infinitely valuable. It's eternally meaningful. So you do a mitzvah even once in your life, and your life is worth living. To be able to do something for him.
So here's a question. In the beginning, you were speaking about the drive and the soul. which the drive that we have is the indication of the soul. So for someone who either doesn't have a drive, or how do we find that drive? How do we touch the soul?
We all have it. No one is without a soul. It's not possible. The question is, do we identify it? I know this guy went to a doctor and he said, I'm never thirsty. I never drink. I'm never thirsty. And the doctor said, that's not possible. You are thirsty. You just don't recognize it. So you're out of touch with yourself, with your own drive, with your own need. So yeah, we all have souls, but we don't always identify it correctly. And the worst thing we can do is to interpret it all in the most mundane and in the most materialistic expressions. All I need is to eat, drink, and be merry. No, you're not recognizing your real need. You know, people who jog and exercise, they want to be healthy. They want to live another year or 2 or 3, which is good. That's their drive. But don't stop there. You want a year or 2 or 3 of life. Why? For what? That's introducing your godly soul. So your animal soul, your human soul, wants to live another year. Your godly soul says, okay, but for what? Purpose. Give your life purpose, meaning. Just to maintain yourself is not good enough. So we all have it. And that's why when you stop a Jew in the street and say, come put on tefillin, it turns his life upside down. You might say it's opening a can of worms that he can't close. In fact, you stop a Jew in the street and you say, excuse me, are you Jewish? He says, yeah. You say, would you like to put on tefillin? He says, no. And he walks away. But you've messed up his life. Now he can't sleep for at least a week. Why did he ask me if I'm Jewish? Yeah, I'm Jewish. What's his business? What, he thinks he's a better Jew than me? I'm a Jew like everybody else. Okay, I don't keep kosher, but maybe I should. Now he can't sleep. Because now you've stirred his godly soul. It's the same with any mitzvah. So it's all there. You just got to poke it a little and it'll respond.
I want to ask Rabbi Dov, Rabbi Kaplan.
I'm going to.
Do you have any?
I've got a bunch of questions, but I'm going to narrow them down. Gentlemen, can you be quiet back here? Sorry. I have 2 questions. One is about joy. And maybe it's too much for a short answer, but you talked about serving God with joy, or generating joy, or having joy, or the response is joy. What is joy is question number 1, and then I'll give you my second question.
Real joy. Real joy is the feeling you get when you know that you're doing what you're supposed to do. If it's not what you're supposed to do, if it's just something you happen to do, it doesn't give you real joy no matter how much you enjoy it. Real joy comes from knowing I am where I need to be, I'm where I'm supposed to be, I'm doing what I was meant to do, I'm on the track. There's nothing that feels as good as that. And there's nothing that feels as painful when you don't know, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What difference does it make? Right? It sounds very depressed and suicidal.
Powerful. Thank you. Here's a philosophical question, and I will read it without trying to explain it. People feel better when they feel needed. How can we be sure that this movement from I need God to God needs me is more than a subjective exercise in role reversal? I hope that makes sense, Rabbi, to you.
Call it what you want. It's not going to change anything. Put it in psychological terms, put it in emotional terms, put it in materialistic terms. It don't matter. It's true. And nothing feels more true than that. Just taste it. Try it on and see how it fits.
I'll say l'chaim to that. I'll say l'chaim. I've got a few more questions, but in a sense, you've answered most of them. They came a little earlier. You've taught me a lot tonight and throughout the years, Rabbi Friedman. And I struggle with what you are saying because I teach and I live about self-development, self-evolution, about fulfilling your greatest purpose in the world. And perhaps at some point, what you said and what so many people usually say, they merge, hopefully, because perhaps the greatest apex of self is when you are being greater than yourself, if I understood you correctly, if you're serving something higher than yourself. So I'm still at the point where I'm at myself, and I say l'chaim to us all tonight, and I'm going to be with a little chutzpah, Rabbi Friedman. What I communicated to the community was the topic of tonight's discussion was who's in charge. And perhaps the answer to that question tonight is that ultimately, and you can disabuse me, you and I are in charge because God needs us. So maybe you'll comment on that.
Or we can change the question. Not who is in charge, who is needy? See, if you say he's in charge, it means we're soldiers and we are given orders and we just have to obey. And after we finish obeying, you can go home. The relationship is much deeper than that. He needs us. He will always need us. And what we do for him, he will always appreciate. So, describing God as being the boss doesn't really tell the story. So as you read through the Torah, you gotta look for the romantic message. It's subtle because it's modest. But like God says, build me a sanctuary and I will live among you. Come on, stop and think about that. What is he saying? Build me a sanctuary and I will live among you, within you. That's like a man saying to a woman, let's build a home. And she goes to Home Depot and comes back with 2x4s and nails and a hammer. And he says, what are you doing? She said, you said you want to build a home. Oh, where has the romance gone? When a man says to a woman, let's build a home, he's proposing marriage, not carpentry. So when God says, build me a home, don't run to Home Depot. Run to the synagogue. So we've lost touch with God's romantic side, and we're missing the major portion of his message. He needs us to be his people in a world that will accept that and celebrate that. See, anti-Semitism, to a great degree, comes from the fact that we're chosen. And there's jealousy. And so there's the attempt to replace us as the chosen people. Some people actually say to me, you used to be the chosen people, but God left you and chose us. I say, okay. I got no problem with that. You can be the chosen people too. But why do you hate us? If you are now the real chosen people, why all the hate? Anyway, the point is that because we are different, there is anti-Semitism. There has always been anti-Semitism. So how is it going to change? How is it going to get fixed? What's going to happen when Mashiach comes? Every anti-Semite will miraculously stop being anti-Semitic. When you're jealous of your brother, of your sister, of your classmate, what's the solution? Oh, don't be jealous. Yeah, thank you. I'll try not to be. But what's the real solution? In other words, what's the alternative? Albert Einstein had a brother who was not very bright. I'm making this up. And he was very jealous. Why is everyone always talking about Albert? What is he, some kind of an Einstein? Yes, he's some kind of an Einstein. What are you going to do about that? What should a brother do about that? Well, he can either be jealous or he can be proud. Be proud to be his brother. Be proud to have such a brother. What should anti-Semitism do? Anti-Semitism should replace the hatred with pride. Be proud that you're part of a world in which God and the Jews have a special relationship. And it's happening all over the world. This is what's happening. The non-Jewish world is suddenly rethinking. Now you read in the papers, anti-Semitism is happening, it's growing, it's returning, no. That's just headline stuff. That's fake news. Because news has to be sensational. No one is ever going to report that a group of non-Jews in New Guinea listen to a rabbi's programs and they study it and they discuss it among themselves and they try to live by what the rabbi says. Thanks to the internet. Because even in the jungles of New Guinea, they have YouTube. That's never going to make the news. But it's happening everywhere. So there's a lot of good news going on. And the contest, like who is the chosen people, it's over. The Jews are the chosen people. There's no religion that even satisfies its own adherents. None. Christians are disillusioned with Christianity. Muslims are afraid to say what they think of their own religion because they'll get killed. The world wants Torah and Jews to lead the way. It's true. We live in good times. Don't listen to the news. It's all fake. You know, everybody has believed in the coming of Mashiach for thousands of years. We're watching it happen. How lucky. We're actually seeing it unfold in front of our eyes. And this COVID, this virus thing has moved us along. Giant step forward, not backward. Don't believe all the bad news. It's not true.
Rabbi Friedman, I had no questions until you said it's moved us a giant step forward, and I'm just curious to hear you elaborate on that. So if you can just, I guess, I have no questions, and I think that the others have already, for the most part, wrapped up. So if I can make this the last one, and then whoever wants to stay on, we have a lovely program afterward that's going to be played. So, but if you can just finish up with that little piece, that would be great.
Briefly, what we used to think of life, what we used to think of ourselves, and what we used to think of society was so wrong and so unhealthy and so destructive, and we never noticed. Like the workplace. And people are saying, when can we go back to work? You want to go back to that? You mean that place that produces nothing but anxiety and stress and competition and greed, backstabbing? You want to go back to that? I don't. How did we tolerate it? How did we not notice how sick it is? The workplace is a very unhealthy environment. We don't want to go back to that. Schools. You want your kids to go back to school? I don't want my kids to go back to school because they're all married. No, we don't want that. We want much better schools. We don't want schools where kids are forced to sit and daydream and then come home and feel like they're losers because they're not the best in the class. We don't want that. We don't want a life that is made up of running here and there, going to a nightclub, going partying, going to a baseball game, hopping on a plane to go visit some exotic place, going shopping. That's what you want? You really thought that that was life? COVID forced us to recognize that that is not life. We haven't gone shopping. We haven't gone traveling. There are no nightclubs. There is no sport event. And we're quite alive, thank you. And actually appreciating our families more. This is a radical change. You can compare it to what happened to Egypt as a result of the plagues. All their gods disappeared. All their idols, whatever they once trusted and believed in, was gone. And so the people came to Pharaoh and said, don't you see this is God's doing? Wow, what an accomplishment. What an improvement. They were a totally godless society. They worshiped the Nile because the Nile watered their fields. They didn't need rain, so they didn't need God. Now all of a sudden they're talking about God. And then Pharaoh comes running to Moshe and says, please go and serve God. This is what's happening to us today. All the false gods we've had, all the things we depended on, politics, science, medicine, hospitals, police, no more. So what's left? Same as what was always. The Creator created a world, and it has moved forward towards His goal without exception every day since creation. We sometimes see it, we sometimes don't. We sometimes cooperate, we sometimes don't. But here's the best example. Let's end with this. You have this giant ship that is steaming towards Jerusalem, the promised land. And you have a guy on deck that is walking in the opposite direction. The ship is going east. He's walking west. Would you get upset with him? Would he threaten you? Hey, 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 we're trying to go east. What are you doing? He's going east. He just doesn't know it. If everyone on the ship was walking towards the west, would you worry? Everybody's confused. We're going east. All roads lead to Jerusalem. So you can do whatever you want, but we're headed in the right direction. It's just a pity that people don't appreciate it and don't enjoy the process because they think they're going west. Sad. So the Rebbe said, please stop people in the street and tell them, you're not going west, we're going east. You want to join us? Turn around, face the right direction. Get with the program. The world is moving towards a godly condition because we've invested so much godliness into this world in all the years since we received the Torah. It's built up quite a powerful pack. And if you think you're going to turn the ship around and go the other, no, you're kidding yourself. Don't do that. So yeah, put on the tefillin. That'll help you face east. Light the Shabbos candle. Now you're facing east. Now you know where you're going. But even if you don't know, you're going there anyway. So there's no reason to give up hope. Never. Anything that is happening, it's because that will take us further east. You cannot turn this ship around. So on the ship, you can do whatever you want. But it would be sad if you don't anticipate your arrival, because that's where we're going to arrive. So the Rebbe wasn't worried that the ship might be going in the wrong direction. That's just panic. The Rebbe knew the ship was going in the right direction. He just feels really bad for everyone who's not enjoying the process. So
Thank you very much, Rabbi Friedman.
Be nice to your friends and clue them in. Invite them in.
Beautiful. L'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you, Rabbi Lewis. Thank you, Rabbi Kaplan. Thank you, Rabbi Ornstein, Rabbi Righteous, and everyone who is here with us tonight. That was wonderful. Very, very thoughtful, refreshing, and a lot to think about. Rabbi Friedman, we should dance together in the East soon. And in the meantime,
I can take a hint. You mean Crown Heights.
Eastern Parkway.
Yeah, well, that's going in the right direction. Just continue after that, you know.
Not a hint at all.
Thank you for the opportunity. because, I'm in quarantine, so I have nothing to do. So this is an opportunity to do something. So thank you very much. Hatzlacha Rabba.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. I want to, just as I don't want everyone to run away, there is a couple more minutes of a continued beautiful program that people get a chance to see the Rebbe and a little bit of a continued insight. So we look forward to dancing in the East with all seriousness, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you very, very much. And Rabbi Lewis, if I can ask you to open up your screen and share, that would be awesome.
Ahavat Yisrael means to me just believing in the unique potential in every individual, and specifically the divine potential in each and every Jew.
Ahavat Yisrael is the love and acceptance of every Jewish soul, regardless of their background, religious observance, level of education.
Every Jewish neshama is precious. We all have a piece of God inside of us, so we never give up on Jewish people. We're all part of a big family. I once heard a story, someone asking the Rabbi if he ever gets tired of just handing out bills to thousands of Jews every single day. And his answer was, how can I get tired just looking at diamonds?
The Rebbe inspired a generation of Jews to see the greatness in every Jew. His literal translation of the concept of loving one's fellow Jew was his very life. In fact, the Rebbe made Ahavat Yisrael the bedrock of his leadership.
The Rebbe, for me, has actively proven that there are people willing to share love in order to grow an infinite boundary of unity or solidarity. And the way that you create the infinite boundary is by not judging everybody else.
Throughout his leadership, the Rebbe modeled love of a fellow Jew, and it was infectious. The Rebbe focused on it during his inauguration. In fact, it was his very mission statement.
Is dort demol der Wort, was der Rebbe hat übergesagt in dem Namen von dem alten Rebben, als wahrhafte Lereyacho Komecho is a Kehle, als wahrhafte es Hawaii Lekecho, I bemele is bazei deselber Seder. A beschaas me legt dem Dogisch auf wahrhafte Lereyacho Komecho, I dos bazei nicht kinstiri so wahrhafte es Hawaii Lekecho, nur verkehrt, dass noch a Kehle durch den Ruf hat mit einer tieferen Verbund mit wahrhafte es Hawaii Lekecho. Da in Amerika ist auch allemal a Seder, a deste Sache will hören a Statement. Und das Statement, da darf sein, etwas mit a Chidush Dover, mit a Inge, was im Mavel es erreihen. Ich bemehle das, ich weiß nicht, das darf Mavel sein es erreihen, aber immer will hören a Statement, hat der Rebbe gesagt, dass da drei Sachen. Als da Havas ist Hashem, und da Havas Ater, und da Havas Yisrael. Und unter die alle drei Sachen sein in Kule Chad. Das ist, man kann nicht voneinander teilen. Zwischen einer haben wir der Zweite. Und man handelt, wie bald das ist Kule Chad, und das ist auch Kule Chad, wie ein Netz mit eins. Das ist, aber ich demut ist dort der Klall, als ein Ingen Atzmi. Wenn man halt so schon an ein Teil davon ist, hat demut hat der Tefis Kule, als bringt op Chassidus b'Shem Baal Shem Tov bringt es op b'Shem Rishonim. Also etzem kishat Tefis b'Miktsose hat Tefis b'Kule. I wie bald als hat die alle drei Sachen seinen Kule Chad, ist in was für Achilek mit Ton chappen, darf man wissen sein, am Chapton alle drei Sachen. Bemele darfen alle wissen, aber schaß man chapt so schon onavas Hashem, ist das nicht eine Sache, was man kann damit jetzt sein, und man kann sich damit halten, eben mit Tom Mavas Atere und eben mit Tom Mavas Yisroel.
If you're going to unlock your potential and be your very best, you're going to have somebody see you like that and inspire you and encourage you to do that. The Rebbe to me is like the ultimate coach. It's the closest thing we have in this life for having somebody seeing you from God's perspective.
From that small room in Brooklyn, the Rebbe's vision was manifest over the years that followed, in the millions of people that he taught and touched. It is, perhaps, the greatest mark he left on each and every one of us. Perhaps the most famous of the Rebbe's Nigunim has been adopted in many Jewish circles during the special prayers on the major festivals. The words capture one of the most essential Hasidic teachings, the profound love God has for his people. By seeing the essence of the Jewish soul, the Rebbe showed what we are capable of. He encouraged people to see themselves and others from God's perspective, how even the most minute action is significant and impactful. Rabbi Fishel Jacobs is a rabbi, author, and expert on the laws of family purity. After a successful career in professional karate, he reconnected to his Jewish roots and had an audience with the Rebbe in 1981.
As I walked in, I didn't think I did it out of naivety. I took a tape recorder and I put it in my mother's pocketbook. I didn't ask, I just assumed it was okay because I knew it was an important thing. So I actually tape recorded the entire thing.
God Almighty bless every one of you and all the members of the family, and all things necessary, spiritually and materially, and especially to have much nachas, much pleasure from every one of the children in all aspects.
At this point, the Rebbe introduced another subject which I really had no idea that was going to come up, and it was out of the blue.
We have received smicha. Now studying for smicha, not planning to study for smicha.
That was extremely difficult because my academic side hadn't expanded very much. I'm in Shir Aleph, which means I'm still in the first class. He said, I'd like to give you, it's a custom amongst Jews to give money for charity. Before, on your way back, you give this, in Eretz Yisrael to charity, your parents give you this dollar. And then he said, that was the end of the yichud. We got up and that was the end of it. This is where the hard part comes in. The smicha was really difficult. It was really a nightmare. That took about 2 years. At that point, my confidence had gotten up a little bit, and I said, wait a minute, it's possible. You can do it. I wrote into the Rebbe, and by now I'm 27 years old. And I said to the Rebbe, well, the Rebbe told me to do smicha. Would the Rebbe give me his blessings to do the head smicha of the head rabbinate of Israel? And the Rebbe wrote back that same day. I got an answer from Rabbi, and the Rebbe says, yes, do that. And from that smicha, Thank God I was able to publish. My first book was Chachmat Tahara while I was in Kollel. It's a commentary on Shulchan Aruch. I published my most famous book, which is Family Purity. I had 7 printings of that book till now. We had a Chabad house at Tel Aviv University. And I was a rabbi in the Israeli prison service. I wrote a book about that. But who thought? People were dismissing me as an ex-athlete. No one saw that in me. No one saw that I could learn Smicha. But he gave me that belief, and he gave me that power.
Gesagt beloschen a Gemara, als ein Mensch kann aufstehen in der ganzen Welt, Chayiv Odom Leimer Bishvili Nivre Hoilom, bis wannet, wie die Gemara sagt in Sanhedrin, wie der Monsche mehrere Mol, Alloma Nivre Hoilom Yechidi, aber schau der Mensch hat beschaffen, schau der Ewigster hat beschaffen die Menschen, hat ihn beschaffen, nicht wie andere Minen. Als sie gewähren ein paar oder mehrere Suche ist, der Mensch ist beschaffen geworden, ein Yechidi, ein 99er oder Marische. Und wir verantworten das, hat der Ewigster hat dämmelt, gleich in dem Onnips von Beschaff gemacht, ein Unterschied. Dem soll wissen sein, jeder Mensch bechol Mokim und bechol Zman. A jeder Mensch ist ein Eilam Mole. Punkt, als wie in jende beschade Mächten, Reger von beschaffenden Menschen. Sie werden 91er Mensch und hat in sich Kehlel gewähnt. Alle Deres, ad Seif Kol Aderes, als darf sich betrachten, jeder Mensch, Seif Kol Aderes in Zman HaGolus, wo soll sich nicht gefühlen, als ist ein Eilam Mole, wo das ist ein Eisdruck von Teiras Emes, Bediuk, an nichts nur Stamm, ist eine Welt, nur ist ein Eilam Mole, eine Welt, was ist ungefüllt, mit allen Sachen, was sie darf sein in der Welt, als sie fällt dort gar nicht Chosser. Es werden nicht mehr dem gegeben, die Pchiro. Soll das herausbringen, Mina Keach und Mina Helen, El HaPeil, Vel HaGilui.
L'chaim, l'chaim.
Hi, everybody.
I
Wonderful spending the evening together.
Shkoyach.
Koyach, Koach, Yontiv, Shabbat Shalom. We'll see you in the East.
On that note, I'm going to press the amnesia button so everybody forgets what Rabbi Friedman said, and that's my sermon on Shabbat.
Are you doing it via Zoom?
No, it will be in person, but that's the whole Farbrengen. I'm going at it for 3 hours. So thank you, Rabbi Friedman. Night, everybody.
Chaim, thank you.
Good night, everyone. Good night.